warfare has changed, again, dramatically. I don't mean just physical warfare of the kind I just described. I'm talking about the capacity, and it's not imaginary, it's not futuristic, and it's not exaggerated. It's moving very rapidly to a situation where, with the click of a button, you can bring down nations to their knees very rapidly, if you so desire, and if you're willing to take the risks, because every system can be hacked. Our airplanes, our hospitals, our cars, our banks. Actually, the most important word here is our data banks. They can be hacked. And the possibilities of sabotage and worse are all there. So this new type of warfare gets more complicated by the day. And I believe it's no coincidence that you're all here in Israel. Again, over 10,000 of you from 5 continents, because you recognize that Israel is a world leader in cybersecurity. So today I have one message for anyone seeking to defend themselves from cyber attack. What happened?
Ladies and gentlemen, this conference has just been hacked. Ironic, isn't it? A conference dedicated to cybersecurity being hacked. We are based in a country not far from Israel. That's all you need to know for now. The bank accounts of everyone sitting in this hall have just been frozen. The intellectual property of your companies is in our hands. So are your private conversations. This information is being sent to your competition and your enemies. Have a nice day.
Fear not, America. Our greatest ally, the cybersecurity geniuses over in Israel, are going to secure the integrity of our elections. They're going to defend from foreign enemies, and they're going to protect our democracy. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Adam Green with nomorenews.org. It is January 6, 2020. Thank you for watching. Thank you for clicking and tuning in. I can't overstate the magnitude of the information I'm about to share with you in this video. I have covered on my channel in the past the Israel tech takeover agenda. The top video, if you're new to this information, I would suggest is Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to rule the world. It's put it out 9 months ago. It just passed 50,000 views. That was Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, like a gangster trying to extort America. It'd be a shame if anything happened to your elections. It'd be a shame if a country brought you down to your knees. We will protect you. They're going to protect us. So they say. In this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the latest news that has been unfolding. And I'm going to share with you the new article out from the incredible investigative journalist Whitney Webb. Her article, Operation Blackout, Why a Shadowy Tech Firm with Ties to Israeli Intelligence is running doomsday election simulations. A shadowy tech firm with deep ties to Israeli intelligence, Unit 8200 and the Mossad, and newly inked contracts to protect Pentagon computers with the Jedi Cloud contract that Trump just gave to Microsoft. And they're partnering up with Lockheed Martin to gain unprecedented access to the heart of America's democracy. Let's begin. This was out 2 days ago from Whitney Webb. Election Day 2020. 32 Americans dead, over 200 injured, martial law declared, and the election itself is canceled. While this horrific scenario seems more like the plot of a Hollywood film, such was the end result of a recent simulation examining the preparedness of U.S. officials from the FBI, Homeland Security, and the Secret Service against bad actors seeking to undermine the upcoming presidential election. Yet the simulation was not a government-organized exercise, but was instead orchestrated by a private company with deep ties to foreign and domestic intelligence services. A company that is also funded by investors with clear connections to individuals who would stand to benefit if such a catastrophic election outcome were to become a reality. After the 2016 election, we heard Russian collusion, Russian interference, Russian hacking. Well, I agree. Definitely Russia, Israel, the Kosher Nostra are deeply involved colluding with Trump to help him get into power. Cambridge Analytica, bot farms, trolls, fake news, all of it. I feel like they've been hyping all of this up, problem, reaction, solution, so that they could give us the answer. And this is what it's going to be. It's all of these new control over our election systems, and we're going to get into it now. Foreign meddling like U.S. rival states like Russia, while China has emerged as the new meddler of choice in America, corporate media as the 2020 election approaches. There's been constant media discussion of foreign threats to U.S. democracy and the electoral processes, whether real or imagined, has undeniably created a climate of fear. But have no fear. Israel is going to protect us, right? Nothing to worry about. Go back to sleep. So, however, many of the same media outlets and groups that frequently fretted about Russia, China, or other rival state meddling in U.S. democracy have largely ignored the role of other nation states, such as Israel, in efforts to sway the last U.S. election in 2016 and in numerous elections in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. So that link, the last election, is Mueller-eyed foreign firm that war-gamed election meddling pre-2016 is one of those links that opens up to. And then, of course, just recently, a few months ago, Israel busted for meddling in elections via the internet all over the world. Israel firm meddles in Africa, Asia, and Latin America elections. It went widely unreported. It was down the memory hole immediately. As a consequence of this climate of fear, it should be hardly surprising that the corporate media lauded the recent 2020 election simulation that ended in an abysmal failure for U.S. officials, the cancellation of the U.S. election, and the imposition of martial law. Yet none of these reports on the exercise noted that the company that hosted the simulation, called Cyber Reason, is led by ex-members of Israel's military intelligence unit 8200, which is equivalent to their NSA. It was advised by former top and current officials in both Israeli military intelligence and the CIA. They partnered with weapons manufacturer and government contractor Lockheed Martin and financial institutions with clear and direct ties to the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, and the White House advisor, President's son-in-law, and wannabe Moshiach, Jared Kushner. What a surprise that MBS and Jared Kushner stand to benefit from this or and involved with this, which is going to get a lot more in depth in part 2, I believe. Also left unmentioned in the media reports on Cyber Reason's election simulations is the fact that Cyber Reason's CEO, Lior Div, has openly admitted that he views his work at Cyber Reason as a, quote, continuation of his service to Israel's intelligence apparatus. Mint Press, in this two-part series, Mint Press will not only explore these aspects, but how many of the technologies wielded by the bad actors in the Cyber Reason election simulation have been pioneered and perfected not by U.S. rival states, but by the Israeli companies and startups with clear ties to that country's intelligence apparatus. In other words, it's Israel that's doing all the offensive hacking that claims to be dominating in cybersecurity, and then they're also going to come in and protect us, supposedly. Cyber Reason itself What's notable is the fact that Cybereason itself has covertly become a major software provider to the U.S. government and military through its direct partnership with Lockheed Martin, which followed the defense company's decision to open an office at the Israeli military's new cyber operations hub in the Negev desert, which I believe is Beersheba that Netanyahu talks about. Examining all the interlocking pieces, a picture emerges of a potentially sinister motive for Cybereason simulations aimed at gauging how U.S. federal officials respond to crisis situations on Election Day. So, one, they're getting all of their hands all over the system so they can hijack it, so they can control it with backdoors. I mean, it's not even hacked or backdoors. They built the whole infrastructure, essentially, for decades. But they're running practice drills to gauge how our military, our federal officials will be able to respond. Understanding Operation Blackout. In early November, a team of hackers working for the private U.S.-based Israeli-founded Cybereason conducted a 2020 election simulation with members of various U.S. agencies, namely the DHS, FBI, and Secret Service. The simulation was organized by Cybereason and law firm Venable, and the U.S. agencies in attendance were invited and appear to not have been charged to participate. Red flag? They're just doing all of this out of altruism, out of the goodness of their hearts, for free? Does anybody believe that? The simulation was titled Operation Blackout, was set in a fictional swing state called Adversaria and pitted ethical hackers from Cybereason against a team of federal and local enforcement officials. The opposing teams were supervised by a white team composed of members of Cybereason staff Ari Schwartz, a former member of White House's National Security Council and the National Institutes of Standard and Technology. Remember NIST in 9/11? A lot more 9/11 parallels and coincidences also in a little bit. Who set the rules of the simulation and would ultimately decide its outcome? Schwartz also used the work for the Center for Democracy and Technology, a major backer of Microsoft's Election Guard software. So this is already a video and a story I did a while ago. Here's Whitney's other article. Microsoft's Election Guard, a Trojan horse for military industrial takeover of U.S. elections. Just more of them securing our democracy and trying to protect the integrity of our elections. Operation Blackout did not involve hackers targeting election software or voting machines. Instead, it focused on civilian infrastructure and psychological operations against the American citizens in the fictitious adversaria on Election Day. A former contractor for Unit 8200, best known for its cyber offenses against other governments, quote, in a country as fragmented as the U.S., the number of people needed to influence an election is surprisingly small. Interesting. They view the U.S. as fragmented. For them, it's unity is their strength, but America, it's diversity is our strength, which leaves us fragmented and makes it easy to throw our country into chaos and to lose confidence in the electoral system and the government. And it's funny, while that is going on, I would like to quickly mention that... Oh, where is it? Here it is. While our elections, where are the simulations in Israel to protect their elections? Where are the new election guards to secure their voting? And why is Israel still using paper ballots when America is not? They'll say, oh, there's less people there. They're able to do it. I don't think that's the reason. Anyway, we attempted to create havoc. Quote, we attempted to create havoc and show law enforcement that protecting the electoral process is much more than the machine. The team completely devastated the U.S. law enforcement team in Operation Blackout by not only causing chaos, but murdering numerous civilians. Hackers took control of city buses, ramming them into civilians, waiting in line at polling stations, killing 32 and injured over 200. They also took control of city lights in order to cause traffic accidents, use so-called deep fakes to conduct psychological operations on the populace, and created fake bomb threats posing as the terror group ISIS, which incidentally has its own ties to Israel, as we know. Israeli intelligence. Telecom networks and news outlets within the fictitious states were also hacked and flooded with deep fakes aimed at spreading disinformation and panic among citizens. So deep fakes, this is already being foreshadowed, is I guess a way you could say it, as we see here, several articles. LA Times, deep fake videos could upend the election, but Silicon Valley may have a way to combat them. Courts, who by the way was promoting this simulation that Cyber Reason did, also says deep fakes will influence the 2020 election and our economy and our prison system. Check out the new mug, guys. Mug Club, Louder with Crowder, watch out, new sheriff in town. And Sticks, watch out, because there's a new clang on the block. So, deepfakes, if you don't know what they are, it's this new technology where they can create fake videos that look incredibly real, making somebody look like they're saying something that they didn't really say. Adobe advertised this a few years ago where they can just edit, they can listen to your voice, get a voice print and edit it to make it say whatever you want. Of course, this is incredibly dangerous because on the eve of the election, they could put out a deep fake of a candidate opposing Trump saying something ridiculous. It goes viral and then nobody votes for him, or they put out fake newscasts with fake news reports that polling stations are closed or the election's canceled, or all types of stuff they would be able to do with these deep fakes. So that's one of the things they did with this simulation to cause chaos. The supervising team, composed of Cyber Reason employees and former National Security Council member Ari Schwartz, decided that the outcome of the face-off between the hacker and law enforcement teams was the outright cancellation of the 2020 election, the declaration of martial law by authorities, the growth of public fear regarding terrorism, and allegations of U.S. collusion with a foreign actor. Let me reread that last part. Allegations of U.S. government collusion with a foreign actor. I wonder who that foreign actor our government could be colluding with to hijack the election. I wonder who. Does this seem like preemptive denial? Because people are going to point to Israel if any of this happens. So they're preemptively trying to get ahead of it and say, oh, we predicted that you guys would blame us. That's just an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. It was Iran. It wasn't us. Cyber Reason has stated that they will soon conduct another 2020 election simulation with federal authorities as the election draws closer, just to make sure everything is in order, I suppose. Several mainstream publications have covered Operation Blackout, but have failed to note that the company behind them has deep ties to foreign intelligence outfits and governments with a documented history of manipulating elections around the world, including the 2016 U.S. election. Cough, cough, Israel. A series of simulations, like the prior simulation conducted in the U.S., Cyber Reason did not appear to charge the UK government agencies for their participation in the exercise either. So they're just doing all this for free. No ulterior motive, right, guys? They're just trying to protect us, I'm sure. Cyber Reason has, with little fanfare, been promoting extreme election day scenarios since before the 2016 election. So Cyber Reason, whenever you hear Rachel Maddow and everybody, all the Democrats saying, oh, Russian interference, they hacked the election, Cyber Reason, the more hysteria about the elections being compromised, the more Cyber Reason was, rubbing their hands together. And it says, in a blog post in 2016 by the CEO's former Israeli government contractor, Lior Div, a former leader of offensive cyber attacks for the IDF's elite Unit 8200 and former development group leader at the controversial Israeli-American corporate Amdocs. Anybody in the chat has heard of Amdocs before? If you haven't, I will refresh your memory in a minute. Div wrote that hackers may target U.S. elections by, quote, breaking into the computers that operate traffic lighting systems and interfering with the ones around polling stations to create massive traffic jams, hacking polling companies, and targeting live election coverage on cable or network television stations. And you may wonder, I saw somebody say this in the chat, Zog already owns all the candidates. They already bought off everybody through APEC and the lobbies and the fear of their power. But you see, they can't leave things like this up to chance. They have to make sure that their politician that they want, their puppet that's going to fulfill their agenda, is going to get in. They can't let their plans go awry. And I think Trump is the man. I think he's going to win in 2020. Because they've got big plans for him. They don't put him on coins with Cyrus and the temple. And they're not hyping all this stuff with this Zionist agenda with him just to let it all fade away. And it says they would also cut power to polling stations and mess with the voters' minds. And the simulation focused on local and state responses to such attacks. Yeah, they're trying to figure out how they're going to be able to do it and get away with it without anybody that's not in on the thing being able to catch them. And Boston-based Cyber Reason invited Massachusetts state and local officials, as well as Boston police officers and a former police commissioner, to participate. Twitter accounts spreading fake news, turning off a city's closed-circuit cameras, hacking self-driving cars and navigation apps. Important to note that Netanyahu is always bragging that Israel is, quote, driving the world. I think it was Intel or Microsoft bought the artificial intelligence self-driving car technology Mobileye for one of the biggest acquisitions in Israeli history. So they've got the back doors into the self-driving cars if anybody wants to do that. In targeting a city's 9/11 call center with a DDoS attack, or DDoS attack, which there is another company, Cyberdyne, that's connected to, what's his name? Ehud Barak Epstein, that is involved with the 9/11 call centers. And they're also involved with tracking everybody's information so that they could do red flag laws that Barr was talking about. You've heard Trump talk about red flag laws as well to stop these anti-Semites especially. And it says, necessarily preparation for, media coverage of the simulation at the time framed it as a necessary preparation for countering Russian threats to U.S. democracy. Like the more recent simulations, the mock election was canceled and voter confidence in the electoral process was devastated. They claimed that the simulation was a way of applying, quote, lessons learned from 9/11. Oh, I'm sure they learned some lessons on 9/11. This is like 9/11 all over again with many of the same companies involved. By preventing the government's failure of imagination. Remember, that was the excuse that the officials long alleged was the reason for the government's inability to thwart the September 11th attacks. And notably, the U.S. military simulated a scenario in which terrorists flew planes into the Pentagon less than a year before September 11th. So the excuse was, it was a failure of imagination. We never thought they would hijack planes and fly them into buildings. Except they ran simulations for that very identical scenario. And not to mention that Netanyahu predicted in his 1995 book, promoting the war on terror, that the World Trade Center would be blown up and that this would be the PNAC Project for a New American Century, the catalyzing event for the new Pearl Harbor, for them to launch the war on terror, which they have been writing about and salivating for a long time. Okay, here we go. Cyber Reason's deep ties to Israeli intelligence, which has a documented history of aggressive espionage and election meddling in the United States and in several nations worldwide, warrants a deeper look into the firm's possible motives and the myriad conflicts of interest that arise in giving such unprecedented access to the heart of America's democracy. What does Cyber Reason do? Cyber Reason's interest in terror events during elections seems out of place given that the company itself is focused on selling technological cybersecurity solutions like antivirus and ransomware protection software. Software products that would be minimally effective against the type of threat encountered in the company's election day simulations. So the company doesn't even really provide answers to the scenarios that they're simulating here. And it says, actively cite the fact that most of their employees are former members of Unit 8200 as proof that they're, quote, applying the military's perspective on cybersecurity to enterprise security. Cybereason's former senior director of intelligence, Ross Rusticki, described the platform as follows. Our founders are ex-Israeli intelligence who worked on the offensive side. So they're professional hackers. And it says, here, let's skip through. You guys should read this whole thing. I'm skipping around because I'm going to show some other relevant information. And they're funded by Lockheed Martin and SoftBank. SoftBank, I believe, has ties to MBS, Kushner, WeWork, Adam Newman, the WeWork founder who basically disgraced. He pumped and dumped the IPO, and now he's he was with the Kabbalah Center, Adam Newman, and then now he left that and joined Chabad Lubavitch with Kushner. And Adam Newman says that Kushner, MBS, and Adam Newman are going to, quote, save the world, and they're also all involved with the Middle East peace deal together. It's like this same little cabal. Okay, given what Cybereason provides as a company, their interest in offering election simulations to government officials free of charge seems odd. Yeah, understatement much. Whitney's so conservative with her articles. I'm able to, speculate a little bit more, put on my tinfoil hat a little bit more, and be a little bit more loose with my analysis. But definitely, free of charge seems a bit odd that they're doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. Indeed, in the simulations hosted by Cybereason for U.S. officials, there is little opportunity for the company to market their software products, given that the simulation did not involve electronic voting infrastructure at all. Instead, the malevolent actors used deep fakes, disinformation, and terror attacks to accomplish their goals. Terrorism is theater, right? Whose motto is, by deception we will wage war again? Never mind. Why then would this company be so interested in gauging the response of U.S. law enforcement to such crisis on election day if there's no sales pitch to be made? So not only did they do it for free, but there's not even like a catch, like, oh, we could provide you all of this software to protect you. They're not even doing that. They're just getting their hands on all of it, and really they have control of all the software to begin with. While some may argue that these simulations are an altruistic effort by the company, yeah, I wonder who's going to make that argument. An investigation into the company's founders and the company's ties to intelligence agencies suggests that this is unlikely to be the case. The people behind Cybereason. Cybereason was created in 2012 by 3 Israelis, all of whom served together as officers in Israel Defense Forces Elite Technological and Signals Intelligence Unit, which is most often referred to as Unit 8200. And a whole lot more on Unit 8200 in my Netanyahu Plan to Rule the World documentary. They're bigger. He brags that they're just as good basically as the United States NSA in everything but scale. And probably the foremost technical intelligence agency in the world and standing on par with NSA in everything except scale. Okay, there it is. Notably, the NSA and Unit 8200 have collaborated on numerous projects, most infamously on the Stuxnet virus, which they used to hack into the nuclear power facility in Iran and blow it up, and the Dooku malware. Given the secrecy of the work conducted by Unit 8200, it is hard to know exactly what Cybereason's co-founders did while serving in the controversial unit. However, a brief biography of the company's current CEO and co-founder states that Div served as a commander in Unit 8200 and carried out some of the world's largest cyber offensive campaigns against the nations. And I would argue all of this is a cyber offensive campaign against the United States. Why can't America have our own Americans protect our government? Why are we outsourcing all of this stuff to a foreign country, a foreign adversary who pretends to be our greatest ally when really they're one of our greatest enemies? Okay. World's largest cyber offensive campaigns against nations and cybercrime groups. For his achievements, he received the Medal of Honor, the highest honor bestowed upon Unit 8200 members. Here he is. Looks pretty trustworthy. I don't know. What do you guys think? And Cyber Reason's co-founders went on to work. They served in leadership positions within Unit 8200. And all three Cyber Reason co-founders went on to work for private Israel-based tech or telecom companies with a history of aggressive espionage against the U.S. government. And boy, do they have a aggressive history of spying on the U.S. Cyber Reason co-founder Jonathan Stream Amit and Yossi Nair both worked for Gita Technologies shortly before founding Cyber Reason, which with fellow Unit 8200 alumnus Div Gita, according to public records, and it's a subsidiary of Variant Systems, formerly known as Converse Infosys. Converse and Amdocs were both involved with 9/11. Converse was initially funded by the Israeli government and was founded by Jacob Kobe Alexander, a former Israeli intelligence officer who was wanted by the FBI on nearly 36 charges. Seems like a good guy, right? Seems pretty trustworthy of fraud, theft, lying, bribery, money laundering, and other crimes for over a decade until he was finally extradited to the United States and pled guilty to some of those charges in 2016. Despite its history of corruption, and foreign intelligence connections, Variant Converse was hired by National Security Agency to create backdoors into all major U.S. telecommunication systems and major tech companies, including Facebook, Microsoft, and Google, as described in a Wire article. Shady companies with ties to Israel wiretap U.S. for the NSA. So they've got backdoors and they see everything that our NSA knows. I mean, if that's not danger, recipe for disaster, I don't know what is. In a rare and candid admission to Forbes, the retired general, a former commander of the Unit 8200, noted his former organization's influence on Converse, which owns Variant, as well as other Israeli companies that dominate the U.S. eavesdropping and surveillance market. Take NICE, Converse, and Checkpoint, for example, three of the largest high-tech companies which were all directly influenced by Unit 8200 technology. Federal agents have reported systematic breaches at the Department of Justice, FBI, DEA, and State Department and at the White House going all the way back to the 1990s, breaches they claim could all be traced back to two companies, Converse and Amdocs. Cyber Reason's co-founder and current CEO used to work for Amdocs as the company's development group leader. So Amdocs and Converse have been spying on us for decades, and we're putting them in charge of putting all the same people in charge of the 2020 election. In Counterpunch has the article by Christopher Ketchum, An Israeli Trojan Horse. And I'm going to play a little bit now from many of you guys that have studied 9/11 have probably seen this. This was the 4-part series by Carl Cameron.
It has been more than 16 years since a civilian working for the Navy was charged with passing secrets to Israel. Jonathan Pollard pled...
By the way, that was Jonathan Pollard, who was spying and handing stuff to Israel, which, by the way, Israel hands all of our intelligence and all of our technology over to our adversaries, their communist buddies, socialist buddies, Russia, Soviet Union, and China.
Guilty to conspiracy to commit espionage.
Oh, and by the way, I believe it was Amdocs who was involved with spying on Bill Clinton. They picked up the Lewinsky phone calls, and then Bibi was able to blackmail Clinton Netanyahu, Lewinsky, Clinton. Netanyahu said to have offered Lewinsky tapes for Pollard. New critical book of the Clinton family claims that Israel tapped White House with amdocs, blackmailed president with recordings of the intern. How are we still letting these companies in charge of the election? Where is our patriots, the white hats as they're called, in our government to kick all these traitors out? They are the enemy. They're conquering America.
And is serving a life sentence. At first, Israeli leaders claimed Pollard was part of a rogue operation, but later took responsibility for his work. Now, Fox News has learned some U.S. investigators believe that there are Israelis again very much engaged in spying in and on the U.S.
The more things change, the more they say the same.
Who may have known things they didn't tell us before September 11th. Fox News correspondent Carl Cameron has details in the first of a 4-part series.
Since September 11th, more than 60 Israelis have been arrested or detained, either under the new Patriot anti-terrorism law or for immigration violations. A handful of active Israeli military were among those detained, according to investigators, who say some of the detainees also failed polygraph questions when asked about alleged surveillance activities against and in the United States. There is no indication.
Failed polygraph test when interrogated by the FBI, just like the Mossad operatives for known Mossad front group Urban Moving Systems who were witnessed filming with cameras set up before the first plane hit the first tower on 9/11, and then they were arrested, act very suspicious. They failed polygraph tests. They had tickets to go fly to different places in the world. They had thousands of dollars in their socks. And good old Dershowitz helped get them off, just like Dershowitz helped Pollard get off. And Dershowitz was also Epstein's lawyer. He calls it a paranoid conspiracy theory, though, if you think he works for Israel or Mossad or KGB, though.
That the Israelis were involved in the 9/11 attacks, but investigators suspect that the Israelis may have gathered intelligence about the attacks in advance and not shared it. A highly placed investigator said there are, quote, tie-ins, but when asked for details, he flatly refused to describe them, saying, quote, evidence linking these Israelis to 911 is classified. I cannot tell you about evidence that has been gathered. It's classified information.
Classified,
Fox News
guys.
has learned that one group of Israelis, spotted in North Carolina recently, is suspected of keeping an apartment in California to spy on a group of Arabs who the United States is also investigating for links to terrorism. Numerous classified documents obtained by Fox News indicate that even prior to September 11th, as many as 140 other Israelis had been detained or arrested in a secretive and sprawling investigation into suspected espionage by Israelis.
Our greatest ally, the only democracy in the Middle East. You hear Pence and Pompeo, the unbreakable bond, our unwavering support, forever, connected forever, like Apex motto was this year. I mean, seriously, nauseating, despicable, pathetic.
In the United States, investigators from numerous government agencies are part of a working group that's been compiling evidence since the mid-90s. These documents detail hundreds of incidents in cities and towns across the country that investigators say, quote, may well be an organized intelligence gathering activity. The first part of the investigation focuses on Israelis who say they are art students from the University of Jerusalem and Bezalel Academy. They repeatedly made contact with U.S. government personnel, the report says, by saying they wanted to sell cheap art or handiwork. Documents say they, quote, targeted and penetrated military bases, the DEA, FBI, and dozens of other government facilities, and even secret offices and unlisted private homes of law enforcement and intelligence personnel. The majority of those questioned, quote, stated they served in military intelligence, electronic surveillance intercept, and or explosive ordnance units. Why would Israelis spy in and on the U.S.? A General Accounting Office investigation referred to Israel as Country A and said, quote, according to a U.S. intelligence agency, the government of Country A conducts the most aggressive espionage operation against the U.S. of any U.S. ally. A defense intelligence...
Most aggressive out of any ally. Let me just pause you right there and go to a couple other stories that happened recently. Let's see, what is this one? We have Here we go. This was back September 12th, right after 9/11. Politico, Israel accused of planting mysterious spy devices near the White House. These were the Stingray boxes that they used to pick up all the cell phone calls. The likely Israeli spying efforts were uncovered during the Trump presidency, several former top U.S. officials said. So just this year, Israel caught planting mysterious devices. Netanyahu, of course, denies the report that Israel planted spy devices near the White House. Of course he denies it. Let's see if there's a... It'll be a commercial, probably. I haven't tried this. Okay, screw you, NBC.
We have a director. I have a director. No intelligence collection in the United States. No spying. And it's rigorously enforced.
There's no spying. It's rigorously enforced, guys. Trust him. Read his lips. He's not lying. Just like this latest thing he's saying, Israel's not behind this latest assassination on the Iranian general. No, that was all Trump. They're staying out of it. That was the news today. These guys think we're so stupid that they can just gaslight and just lie and contradict themselves. They don't care. When the media is behind them and they can control the narrative, and then they can just smear you, anybody that opposes them and exposes them as anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, you can just get away with bold-faced lies. God, this is sickening.
In the United States. No spying. And it's rigorously enforced without any exceptions. It's complete.
ראש הממשלה, מאיפה מגיע הדיווח הזה לדעתך?
Complete fabrication.
Oh, and his good buddy Putin. Oh wow, Putin's anti-Zog, guys. He's fighting the Zionists. Look at that. Ooh. Man, they look like enemies. All right. And then, of course, good old Trump, what does he have to say? Trump says he doesn't believe reports of Israel spying on the White House. Yeah. Compromat, huh? I wonder what they have on him. He's just as tied in with Epstein as Clinton or any of the rest of them are. Don't kid yourself, MAGA fools, QAnon retards. Trump says he doesn't believe the report. Of course not. Of course he doesn't believe it. Because if he said, oh yeah, they're spying on me, whatever they have on him would be out. 2 months ago, out of The Guardian, WhatsApp sues Israeli firm accusing it of hacking activist phones. So, you thought WhatsApp owned by Facebook? Facebook, by the way, is creating their cryptocurrency over in Israel, Libra. And this was connected to NSO Group, spyware allegedly used in cyber attacks on lawyers and journalists. NSO Group is well known for their spying. They're connected to that one company, Sirabu. Help me out in the chat, guys. You guys probably know it. It's named. This Israeli company is named after a parasite called Candiru, an Israeli hacking. Come on, Candiru, Israel. Where is it? Here we go. Meet Candiru, the mysterious mercenaries hacking Apple and Microsoft PCs for profit. Comes out of Israel. So they're all of the hackers. They're creating the problem. They're hacking everything everywhere with backdoors. And then they're going to come in with the solution and be the saviors and the heroes with their genius that Netanyahu likes to talk about so much. And there's more articles too. They're connected to NSO Group. So they're hacking WhatsApp, which everybody thought was safe. By the way, another story that's related to that is MBS from Saudi Arabia and Kushner got busted for communicating on WhatsApp. And, here's Microsoft will give away software to guard U.S. voting machines with the election guard. So they're just getting their hands on everything for this. And, of course, Microsoft explains why they use Israel for their R&D. Israel's just going to take care of everything, guys. We're going to outsource it all. Nothing to worry about. We can trust them. They're our greatest ally. We got a fox guarding the hen house here. Seriously. in every shape or form. And even our named our top cybersecurity chief for the NSA just got appointed as an Orthodox Jewish woman, just like Orthodox, like Kushner. Ann Neuberger grew up in mostly Hasidic Chabad Lubavitch Brooklyn neighborhood of Borough Park. Parents were among hostages rescued during Israeli raid on Entebbe. So she used to be at Cyber Command. So yeah, we're in good hands, guys. Looks like we're going to be protected real well here. And Fox guarding the hen house, all these people that are supposed to be protecting America are traitors like former NSA head Mike Rogers, who leaves the NSA, revolving doors, goes and gets a job with Unit 8200 Israeli venture firm Team 8, who is, and here's Cyberscoop. Ex-NSA employees criticize Mike Rogers for role with Israeli venture firm. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. And I got a little sidetracked there. We're talking about Converse and Amdocs. Let's speed up here to the part where they talk about Converse and Amdocs. We already let them, this Fox News thing, this report, it's just like, oh yeah, they had advanced knowledge, but it's, it's classified. We can't talk about it. And they knew and all this stuff. Amdocs, Converse, they were involved. Hey, let's just put them in charge of the 2020 election too. Why not?
We reported on the approximately 60 Israelis who had been detained in connection with the September 11th terrorism investigation. Carl Cameron reported that U.S. investigators suspect that some of these Israelis were spying on Arabs in this country and may have turned up information on the planned terrorist attacks back in September that was not passed on. Tonight, in the second of 4 reports on spying by Israelis in the U.S., we learn about an Israeli-based private communications company for whom a half dozen of those 60 detained suspects worked. American investigators fear information generated by this firm may have fallen into the wrong hands and had the effect of impeding the September 11th terror inquiry. Here's Carl Cameron's second report.
Fox News has learned that some American terrorism investigators fear certain suspects in the September 11th attacks may have managed to stay ahead of them by knowing who and when investigators are calling on the telephone. How? By obtaining and analyzing data that's generated every time someone in the U.S. makes a phone call.
One sitting in city, please.
Here's how the system works. Most directory assistance calls and virtually all call records and billing in the U.S. are done for the phone companies by Amdocs Limited, an Israeli-based private telecommunications company.
You hear that? Before 9/11, Amdocs, an Israeli-based company, had backdoors and was able to track every single phone call that happened in the United States. So when our FBI and CIA was trying to track the supposed hijackers and these terrorists, they were able to stay one step ahead of them, and investigations were closed. Able danger and all types of stuff. They were protecting these terrorists. Not only just protecting, they were sending them to flight schools and crap. And what was I going to say? My theory is, and this is a theory, I think that Mossad had their Arab agents. They got into cells, or they created Al-Qaeda cells to carry out the attacks and to be blamed, and that's why they were able to protect them and allow it to happen, and didn't tell us what was happening. They wanted the attack to happen.
Amdocs has contracts with the 25 biggest phone companies in America and more worldwide. The White House and other secure government phone lines are protected, but it is virtually impossible to make a call on normal phones without generating an Amdocs record of it. In recent years, the FBI and other government agencies have investigated Amdocs more than once. The firm has repeatedly and adamantly denied any security breaches or wrongdoing. But sources tell Fox News that in 1999, the super-secret National Security Agency, headquartered in northern Maryland, issued what's called a top-secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information report, TSSCI, warning that records of calls in the United States were getting into foreign hands, in Israel in particular.
All right. I mean, you guys have seen enough. It just gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, fool me once, fool me twice, and we're just going to keep getting duped over and over again by Israel. And very likely they infiltrated cells or created cells, found some patsies, And then who knows exactly how they did it, but definitely 9/11. We know that who was orchestrating it. It was Zionists everywhere you look. And, you know, this is not so much of a conspiracy theory, because look at this article here. This is Washington Times. It came out, look at this date here, September 10th, 2001. U.S. troops would enforce peace under Army study. Elite U.S. Army Study Center has devised a plan for enforcing a major Israeli-Palestinian peace accord. This is the day before 9/11. The School for Advanced Military Studies is both a training ground and think tank for some of the Army's brightest officers. So these are the brightest officers in our military. What did they say? Of the Mossad, Israel's Mossad, the Israeli Intelligence Service, the SAMS officers say, Mossad is a wild card, ruthless and cunning, has capability to target U.S. forces and make it look like a Palestinian Arab act. The day before 9/11, top military people were warning that Mossad can attack us and blame it on the Palestinians. How about that? How about that? Okay, where are we now? We're lost. A little bit more on Amdocs and we'll get back to the article.
Investigators do not believe calls are being listened to.
Israeli-based company called Amdocs that generates the computerized records and billing data for nearly every phone call made in America. As Carl Cameron reported, U.S. investigators digging into the 9/11 terrorist attacks fear that suspects may have been tipped off to what they were doing by information leaking out of Amdocs. In tonight's report, we learned that the concern about phone security extends to another company founded in Israel that provides the technology that the U.S. government uses for electronic eavesdropping. Here is Carl Cameron's third report.
That's Converse.
The company is Comverse Infosys, a subsidiary of an Israeli-run private telecommunications firm with offices throughout the U.S. It provides wiretapping equipment for law enforcement. Here's how wiretapping works in the U.S. Every time you make a call, it passes through the nation's elaborate network of switchers and routers run by the phone companies. Custom computers and software made by companies like Comverse are tied into that network to intercept, record, and store the wiretapped calls, and at the same time transmit them to investigators. The manufacturers have continuing access to the computers so they can service them and keep them free of glitches. This process was authorized by the 1994 Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, or CALEA. Senior government officials have now told Fox News that while CALEA made wiretapping easier, it has led to a system that is seriously vulnerable to compromise and may have undermined the whole wiretapping system. Indeed, Fox News...
Hear that? Israel compromised our whole wiretapping system. Everything our government knows, Israel knows, and that means they're selling it and giving it to China and Russia. And this is another example is the Promise software by Epstein's Ghislaine Maxwell, her dad, Robert Maxwell, the Israeli KGB super spy. He stole the Promise software, redesigned it, and sold it all around the world to spy. They sold it to government so they could spy, and then Israel had the back door to all of it. Not only do they have pedo blackmail rings with Epstein where they have people compromised with blackmail, but they know secrets that everybody is talking about. Backdoors into everything. Kill switches, all of it. It really gives new meaning to Netanyahu up here saying, oh, we can bring a country to their knees. Kind of explains why all of our government does whatever Israel says.
News has learned that Attorney General John Ashcroft and FBI Director Robert Mueller were both warned October 18th in a hand-delivered letter from 15 local, state, and federal law enforcement officials who complained that, quote, law enforcement's current electronic surveillance capabilities are less effective today than they were at the time CALEA was enacted. Comverse insists the equipment it installs is secure, but the complaint about this system is that the wiretap computer programs made by Comverse have, in effect, a back door through which wiretaps themselves can be intercepted by unauthorized parties. Adding to the suspicions is the fact that in Israel, Comverse works closely with the Israeli government and under special programs gets reimbursed for up to 50% of its research and development costs by the Israeli Ministry of Industry and Trade. But investigators within the DEA, INS, and FBI have all told Fox News that to pursue or even suggest Israeli spying through Converse is considered career suicide.
So all these people blow the whistle, but for them to, they don't blow the whistle to the media because it's career suicide. Or even if they go up to their superiors and try to say that, this is wrong, we can't allow Israel to do this. Career suicide. You only move up, you can only be in a position of power if you are compromised or if you go along with the Zionist agenda. I mean, guys, America is conquered. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'm doing everything I can to spread the message. Share the links, talk to everybody you know, protest, call your politicians. I don't know what the answer is. People always go, solutions. If I had a solution, I'd be talking about it. If there were solutions, people would be implementing the solutions. Email me if you think that you have the answer. I don't think billboards saying, Israel steals our technology is going to do much. I do videos on it all the time. Do you see anything changing? Does it go anywhere? Call me cynical, call me pessimistic, but look at the reality of what's going on here. Black-pilled.
And sources say that while various FBI inquiries into Converse have been conducted over the years, they've been halted before the actual equipment has ever been thoroughly tested for leaks. A 1999 FCC document indicates several government agencies expressed deep concerns that too many unauthorized, non-law enforcement personnel can access the wiretap system. And the FBI's own nondescript office in Chantilly, Virginia, that actually oversees the Kalia wiretapping program, is among the most agitated about the threat. But there is a bitter turf war internally at FBI. It is the FBI's office in Quantico, Virginia, that has jurisdiction over awarding contracts and buying intercept equipment. And for years, they've thrown much of the business to Converse.
They're giving everything to the Israeli government. They're the biggest spies, our biggest adversaries, attack us at USS Liberty, 9/11, steal our nuclear technology, send it all to China and Russia. They can get away with anything. They get away with murder day in and day out for decades.
A handful of former U.S. law enforcement officials involved in awarding Converse government contracts over the years now work for the company. Numerous sources say some of those individuals were asked to leave government service under what knowledgeable sources call troublesome circumstances that remain under administrative review within the Justice Department. And what troubles investigators most, particularly in New York in the counterterrorism investigation of the World Trade Center attack, is that on a number of cases, suspects that they had sought to wiretap and surveil immediately changed their telecommunications processes. They started acting much differently as soon as those supposedly secret wiretaps went into place. Brett?
Carl, is there any reason to suspect in this instance that the Israeli government is involved?
No, there's not, but there are growing instincts and an awful lot of law enforcement officials in a variety of agencies who suspect that and have begun compiling evidence and a highly classified investigation into precisely that possibility. Brett?
All right, Carl, thanks very much.
All right, Carl. All right, Carl. So here is Information Awareness Office. This was a real department under DARPA. And this is their symbol here. Talk about, Illuminati, Freemasonry, on our money. The Freemasons are the temple builders too. They have the Supreme Court in Israel has a all-seeing eye as well. Come on, guys. Total information awareness. It's just, they even put it on the patches. The eye is watching everything. This wasn't made up by a conspiracy theorist. This is legit. They're watching everything. The eye in the sky. Nothing to worry about, though. A little bit more here. Oh, and by the way, we're giving all these contracts to Converse and Amdocs and everything. Meanwhile, Newsweek, Israel flagged as top spy threat to U.S. in new Snowden NSA document. This is just pathetic. Our government just bends over for Israel. Top spy threat. The most aggressive spying in our country.
Shock spread from the DEA to the FBI in Washington and then the CIA. An investigation of the problem, according to law enforcement documents, concluded, quote, The organization has apparent extensive access to database systems to identify pertinent personal and biographical information.
Remember when Netanyahu in the beginning said, oh, the most important thing they want to hack is your databases? Well, guess what? He's already got control of all the databases.
Investigators tried to find out where the information might have come from. They looked at Amdocs, a publicly traded firm based in Israel. Amdocs generates billing data for virtually every call in America, and they do credit checks. The company denies any leaks, but investigators still fear that the firm's data is getting into the wrong hands.
Getting into the wrong hands. They're the wrong hands. Israel is the wrong hands. They're the supremacists. They're the ones that want to rule the world. They're the ones that hate the Gentiles and want us to be their slaves.
When investigators checked their own wiretapping system for leaks, they grew concerned about potential vulnerabilities in the computers that intercept, record, and store the wiretapped calls. A main contractor is Comverse Infosys, which works closely with the Israeli government and under a special grant program is reimbursed for up to 50% of its research and development costs by Israel's Ministry of Industry and Trade. Asked this week about another sprawling investigation and the detention of 60 Israelis since September 11th, the Bush administration treated the questions like hot potatoes.
I would just refer you to the Department of Justice with it. I'm not.
So, when we asked Ari Fleischer, the White House spokesman, about the dancing Israelis, he's like, oh, I can't talk about that, but they're not Mossad agents. And then he goes, oh, I can't answer the question about these Israeli spies that were all caught. Well, what do you know? Just like, oh, come on, where is it? Just like the woman in charge of NSA. Just like the woman in charge of NSA is ultra-Orthodox. Gosh. Please have a photo. Ari Fleischer is Chabad Lubavitch as well. I'm looking for the photo of it right now. But Ari Fleischer is Chabad. Come on, I don't have a... Here, we're going to find this. Pardon my interruption. Watch this. Ari, please be in there. Come on, search it. Search it. Okay, no. Trump's former agent... super agent Rahm Emanuel's brother. That's what popped up in that file. Oh yeah, you know he's also a Sacha Baron Cohen's agent and Michael Moore's agent. Yeah, Fahrenheit 9/11. Talk about misdirection, red herrings, limited hangouts, blaming it all on Saudi Arabia. And here we will find it though. Watch this. We're gonna see Ari Fleischer just so you guys know how important this is. There he is, Crown Heights, Ari Fleischer. Who would think that the guy right there next to Bush on 9/11, helping him write his script and react to the attacks, has got a cube on his forehead and leather cutting off the circulation to his hand with Chabad Lubavitch. Chabad Lubavitch, a supremacist cult, international mafia behind Putin, Trump, Netanyahu, the Moscow, Tel Aviv, New York triangle, the Kosher Nostra, Ari Fleischer.
Familiar with the report.
I'm aware that some Israeli citizens have been detained. With respect to why they are being detained and the other aspects of your question, whether it's because they are in intelligence services or what they were doing, I will defer to the Department of Justice and the FBI to answer that.
No answers.
Beyond the 60 apprehended or detained and many deported since September 11th, another group of 140 Israeli individuals have been arrested and detained in this year in what government documents describe as, quote, an organized intelligence gathering operation designed to, quote, penetrate government facilities. Most of those individuals said they had served in the Israeli military, which is compulsory there, but they also had, most of them, intelligence expertise and either worked for Amdocs or other companies in Israel that specialize in wiretapping. Earlier this week, the Israeli embassy here in Washington denied any spying against or in the United States. Tony?
Carl, we've heard the comments from Ari Fleischer and Colin Powell. What are officials saying behind the scenes?
Well, there's real pandemonium described at both the FBI, the DEA, and the INS. A lot of these problems have been well known to some investigators, many of whom have contributed to the reporting on this story. And what they say is happening is supervisors and management are now going back and collecting much of the information because there's tremendous pressure from top levels of all of those agencies to find out exactly what's going on. At the DEA and the FBI already, a variety of administrative reviews are underway, in addition to the investigation of the phenomenon. They want to find out how it is that all this has come out, as well as be very careful because of the explosive nature and very political ramifications of the story itself. Tony?
All right, Carl, thanks.
So all they cared about is how is this information getting out, and it's political, explosive, because our greatest ally. We can't let them know that our greatest ally is our greatest enemy. And just think of the odds with Ari Fleischer. Where is Ari Fleischer? With Ari Fleischer connected to Chabad and the NSA woman in charge of NSA cybersecurity right now being ultra orthodox. Like, we're talking about Jews in the world are 0.1% of 1% or 10% of 1%, I think Netanyahu said, and that's all Jews. We're talking ultra orthodox Chabad is even a smaller percentage, and they just keep popping up over and over again. Kushner in the White House, and Chabad I cover on my channel all the time. All right, we will continue back to the article. We got a little sidetracked there, but we only have a little bit left. Okay, so Converse, Amdocs, you guys get it. 9/11. So this election 2020 is like the same people that did 9/11 essentially are getting their tentacles all over everything again for something big, running simulations, running tests for who knows what. And it might be worse than even getting Trump reelected. It could be a whole lot worse. I'm not making any predictions, but I mean, you guys can kind of come to your own conclusions. So the breaches claimed could all be traced back to two companies, Converse and Amdocs. And this guy, Div, his work at Cyber is the continuation of the 6 years of training and service he spent working with the Israeli Army's 8200. The largest cyber offensive campaigns against nations and cyber crimes is what he does. They have even directly involved with Israeli intelligence, Cyber Reason focuses exclusively on Russia and China as the enemies. And the website only mentions China, North Korea, and Russia by name, all of which incidentally rival states of the U.S. government, notably Israel's government listed as a leading espionage threat to U.S. financial institutions and... Sorry, my Adobe does that sometimes. Is absent from Cyber Reason's discussion of state actors. So they're saying, oh, we're going to protect you from Iran, Russia, and China. Meanwhile, they're already giving all of our information to them and our technology anyway. And then they're leaving them out, Israel out, and they're the ones that are the biggest threat. Fox guarding the hen house. Okay. We'll go I think it's going to be like another 10 minutes maybe. There's not too much more to get to. Going through this a little faster than I thought. And everybody, I haven't done a plug. I haven't plugged the whole hour yet. Please. Demonetized on YouTube. Banned on PayPal.
Today, warfare has changed.
I can't do this without you guys. The links, I've been putting them in the chat. Go to nomorenews.org. Contact page. If you want to, the P.O. box is there. If you want to send me mail, checks, the old-fashioned way. Right now I have Patreon is all I have. Patreon and Subscribestar. If you guys want to support independent media that is sacrificing a lot to tell you guys the truth. Bitcoin as well, although I think I'm about done with Bitcoin. That is a huge psyop, I'm pretty sure. Banned on PayPal, so it's Patreon and Subscribestar. I can't do it without you guys. Every dollar helps. Thank you to everybody that has supported. I really can't do it without you. Your support means the world to me. It keeps me going. It keeps me fighting. Keeps me from getting down. And it's motivating because I don't want to let you guys down. I'm all in. All my cards are on the table. And I'm fighting this till the end. So, okay, commercial break over. Let's get back to the article. We're almost done. All right. Several recent attacks. Sensitive nature of the hacks and companies affected. Okay, we can skip that. Here's the advisory board. So one of these guys connected to Cyber Reason is a guy named Bigman. He also is an advisor on another Israeli company called Sepio Systems. And the chairman of Sepio Systems is a guy named Pardo, who is the leader in the cybersecurity industry and former director of Israel's Mossad. So the former head of Assad, like 1 degree of separation away from this company. Sepio is funded by a venture capital firm founded by the creators of the controversial Israeli spy company NSO Group, who I mentioned a second ago. There's so many of these. I don't know why she linked this. We don't speak Hebrew, Whitney. Okay, NSO Group, which has received a slew of negative press coverage after its software was sold to several governments who use it to spy on dissidents and human rights activists. Yeah, they're not the good guys. They are selling their stuff to the bad guys for offensive purposes. Cyber Reason's advisory board includes Pinchas Putras, the former head of Unit 8200 and managing director of the IDF. And his bio fails to mention that he sits on the board of Carbine 911. Whitney has done an article on Carbine as well. Like I said, that's the 911 or 911 emergency call system, and also it's tied in with red flag laws or something like that. I don't know. This is a headache. Whitney's done an incredible job putting all this together. She's working on part 2. I'm hoping to get her on when she's out with part 2. Carbine was invested. Investors in Carbine is Minister Ehud Barak, who is the Prime Minister of Israel. Remember, I've covered that Ehud Barak was the one that was the morning of 9/11, was in BBC World Studios giving the official narrative, saying this was Osama bin Laden, the war on terror is going to start, Homeland Security and the Patriot Act essentially is coming down the pipeline, all of that stuff. And Ehud Barak, was involved with military units with Netanyahu going back decades. And also he invested, remember Ehud Barak was implicated with Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein was also invested in Carbine as well. Epstein himself poured at least $1 million into Carbine, an Israeli company that seeks to run all 9/11 call centers in the U.S. at the national level and has close ties to the Trump administration. Wow. Coming pre-crime policies, more information on Carbine and its ties to Israeli and U.S. intelligence, as well as its connection to coming pre-crime policies to be enacted in 2020 by the U.S. Department of Justice and Barr, Trump's Barr. Given that Cyber Reason's Election Day simulations involve the simulated collapse of 911 call center functionality, his ties to both Cyber Reason and Carbine 911 are notable. And it says, the police commissioner was involved with Cyber Reason, and he was the commissioner when they did the Boston bombing. Remember that those alleged bombers came from Chechnya. I learned recently in Putin's Reign of Terror by Christopher John Bjerknes, he makes a strong case that much of ISIS are Chechen fighters that are actually working on behalf of Putin. I know it's not what you heard. Look into it. I'll be covering Soviet stuff in upcoming videos coming real soon. Cyber Reason's Election Day... this is notable given that Cyber Reason's Election Day simulations ended with martial law being imposed. Are we going to have martial law in the 2020 elections? Are we going to stop all of this from happening if we get this message out? If we spread this video around, if you talk to people and you push other content creators to cover this, we could blow this up so they're not able to take over the country as planned. Kind of like 11-3 if you want to be optimistic. Vice presidents, I'm talking about Seattle, my Seattle video, which I didn't predict anything was going to happen. I was just predicting what other people were saying. Vice President, and then also Cyber Reason has several advisors, including VP Google, or Security and Privacy at Google, and the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer. Lockheed Martin has used its privileged position as the top private contractor to the U.S. government to promote the widespread use of Cyber Reason's software among U.S. government agencies, including the Pentagon. And remember, the Pentagon, Cloud, Jedi, Microsoft, we just, why not hand everything to to Israel. Amazon appeals. Oh, this isn't the right article, but they gave Microsoft the $10 billion contract, and their cloud services for Microsoft are based in Israel. So the Pentagon, just give everything to Israel. Why don't we just become a little satellite state of Israel? We could be the United States of Zog. Oh, and by the way, Elon Carr and this executive order that Trump and Kushner pushed a couple of weeks ago, and Sheldon Adelson, and the definition of anti-Semitism is that you're not allowed to talk about their loyalty, and I forgot where I was going with this. Sorry, totally brain fart. I was going to make a genius point right there that would have just left you guys in awe. Maybe it'll come to me in a second. Cybersecurity is much more than Cyberdyne is much more than a cybersecurity company. It's worth asking if these disturbing election simulations could serve. Okay, I remembered. It's illegal to say that Zog. Not illegal. Well, it may be illegal soon to criticize Jews or even just to not worship them. They're talking about pushing philo-Semitism education to teach everybody to love Jews, along with the more World War II event indoctrination. But literally, it was a bill in Congress to condemn white supremacy, and in the language it said Zionist-occupied government, Zog. That's anti-Semitic. You're not allowed to say that a foreign power controls our government. You're not allowed to talk about their control of anything. You're not allowed to call them racist. You're not allowed to say that they have loyalty to a foreign country, because it's a free country and we have freedom of speech. It's worth asking if these disturbing election simulations could serve an ulterior purpose, and if so, who would benefit? I love that language there from Whitney, compared to what I'm able to do on my channel, rant and rave about how they're taking over and everything. And she's just like, I wonder if they'll have an ulterior motive. Could they have an ulterior motive? Jeez, where did I lost my spot? Here, I'll just do Control F, motive. There we go. Oh, there's several motives. Come on. Did I not just say? Oh my God. Sorry guys. Lost my spot. This is a long article. Whitney doesn't mess around. She doesn't just do little, couple paragraph articles. These things are thorough. I've read it like 4 times now to be able to report this. Yeah, I suggest you guys all share it around. It's on my Twitter. If you follow on Twitter, I'll put the link in the description below. Okay, we're almost there. Where are we? Ulterior motive. There we go. Ulterior purpose. Cyber Reason's work as a continuation of his service for the Israeli military intelligence went to work for Israeli tech companies that have been known to spy on U.S. federal agencies for the Israeli government. Lockheed Martin invests in partner with Cyber Reason, and U.S.-based company opened an office in the IDF's public cyber hub in Beersheba. Outsourcing. Okay, this is interesting. A good point. They give these things to private companies. They outsource the intelligence objectives and missions to private companies. Provides the government with a plausible deniability that if that private company's espionage-related activities or ties are made public, they could just say, "Oh, we deny." Like Netanyahu denies. They denied Converse and Amdocs around 9/11. They're denying it now. After this, they're already preemptively denying it, saying, "Oh yeah, those anti-Semites, they're going to blame Israel. They're going to say we were behind it when Iran or Russia or China hacked the election." Furthermore, I really hope this video does not age well. I don't want to see. I hope I'm wrong. I hope none of this transpires. Hopefully you guys share it around and spread the word so we can hopefully stop this and put an end to this Zog takeover. Israeli intelligence has a long history of using private tech companies for the purpose of espionage, including against the United States. While Amdocs and Converse were already mentioned, the most well-known example of this is arguably the mass-scale distribution of bugged Promise software, which Whitney did some articles on that as well. That's with Epstein's Madame Ghislaine Maxwell's dad pushed the Promise software everywhere, with backdoors into all the intelligence agencies for their spying. They are the king of loopholes. They're the double standard hypocrites, and they're the spies of spies. That's another one. They spy on the spies around the world. Cybereason's main product is antivirus and network defense platforms. Which offers them a major espionage opportunity. The ultimate Cybereason's defense platform includes the ultimate backdoor, adding that it provides consistent, reliable, and remote access that can be used for any purpose, from launching a destructive attack to conducting espionage on thousands or even millions of users. All the Internet of Things, everybody's smartphones, all the chips, Snapdragon, Intel, all over in Israel, Qualcomm. Whether a company like Cybereason, this is so funny, another total understatement from Whitney. Whether a company like Cybereason would use its software for such ends is unknown. Yeah. Though the company does acknowledge that its cybersecurity arm does gather intelligence, they're doing surveillance. More of a mystery, however, is why a company like Cybereason is so interested in U.S. election security. Yeah, they're just doing it for free to protect our democracy, particularly when Israeli intelligence and Israeli intelligence-connected private companies have been caught in recent years meddling. Oh, she's got all these links. Meddling in elections around the world. See, this one's Facebook. Bust Israel-based campaign to disrupt elections. All the talk about Russia collusion. Meanwhile, there was Russia collusion, but it's Russia-Israeli. They're ignoring the Israeli role as they openly buy our politicians with AIPAC, ZOA, and all the lobbies. And what's the other link? Facebook bans Israel-based firm that ran campaigns to disrupt elections. 65 Israeli accounts, 161 pages, dozens of groups, and 4 Instagram accounts were linked to Archimedes Group, a Tel Aviv-based political consulting and lobbying firm that boasts of its social media skills and ability to change reality. Oh, remember when Ilhan Omar said that they're hypnotizing the world, and they said, anti-Semite, that's the most vile thing I've ever heard. Well, we've got Israeli spy companies that are bragging that they're able to change reality on social media. And just recently, there was a huge right-wing network, Israeli, that was always pushing news to vilify Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib because they're anti-BDS, anti-Israel. As Trump says, they hate Jews. They hate Jews. Okay, get rid of that. We're about done with this article, and I only have a couple more things to show you guys. Thank you for sticking with me. Okay, this is it. Whitney Webb, Mint Press News journalist. There we go. There we have it. Now, a little bit more. Here we have Cybereason on Twitter. Take a peek inside Operation Blackout and how our election hacking exercises simulated the risks that can surround elections and democracy. So they got a video, a whopping 9 likes and 1 retweet. How about that? Let's watch this.
We're here on an election day, actually running a simulation of an election day, where a local, domestic, disruptive group is looking to undermine the validity of elections. The goal isn't just to be vandals or to do damage. It's in fact to lose faith in the system and to create long-term political scandal. And we simulate that. So there's a red team made up of some pretty cool people who are looking to have fun and cause mayhem. And then there's blue team, also cool people, but in a different way. They're looking to see how would law enforcement really deal with something like this.
We've seen that elections are targets, and it's important for the electorate to know that the government and private sector is working to secure elections so that they can feel confident when they vote that results are exactly what they're supposed to be.
There's a lot of focus on how do we make sure that the systems in question, the actual voting polls, are reliable. But the act of voting is much more than just the system.
There's more potential risk to our national elections here in the United States than just the voting rolls and the voting machines.
When people start being manipulated, either from a perception or even physical manipulation,
traffic lights, public transportation, free elections are getting impacted, and if targeted well, this could swing an election from one side to the other.
We live in a world now where telling where the digital ends and the physical begins or vice versa is almost impossible, which means things that we've taken for granted in our democracies, in our republics, are now potentially under threat from new sources we've never thought of before. It's important to do these exercises so that the people on the sharp end responsible for our safety know what they can and can't do and when to call for help.
Look at that. Protect the vote. So, I want to say something else too. I just had a thought that even if they don't, declare martial law and do all this chaos for this election, they're still getting their hands on everything. They're going to control, the Pentagon, all the spying, the NSA, everything. Once they get control, they're not just going to give it up. And it's going to be really hard to get it back. So we are handing over the keys to the city to Israel, to a foreign country. Here's Cyber Reason again. So now we're going to tie into what's happened in the last week, what's been unfolding with Iran. This was January 3rd, 3 days ago. We're 3 days into 2020 and the world is already on high alert from last night's airstrike in Baghdad. Read our latest blog to learn about their history of cyber retaliation and what could be in store. So already saying, watch out, America, Iran is gonna hack you and we're gonna protect you. And this is back in November 21st, laying the groundwork, putting it out there, foreshadowing of what's to come. The Iranian hacking group APT-33 has been targeting industrial control systems used by power grids, manufacturing, and oil refineries. Read CSO take on it, and that's Forbes article, which I'll show you guys in a second. Here's Cyber Reason. This isn't the blog post they put out January 3rd. Is cyber retaliation from Iran imminent? And this clip I played in the beginning when they got taken over, and it said, "We're sharing the information with your enemies."
And your enemies.
They're implying this is going to be Iran, is what I think is happening. Okay, where are we? And only a couple more things to show. And again, it's important to note again, Israel uses paper ballots and they're not doing simulations for their elections. But I guess they're not fragmented. They have unity over there, unlike America, which is just walking on thin ice essentially, thanks to all the Duganist polarization. All right, where are we now? Couple more things here, and we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna be doing over on D Live with Red Elephants tonight, talking about a bunch of stuff. So here's all the Iranian chatter. Forbes. This was back November 21st, 2019. Iranian hackers are going after a disturbing new physical target. I guess our electric grid. That's what they're referring to there. Mirror UK. Iran cyber hacks American government websites and gives a chilling warning. So this just happened yesterday or the day before, January 5th. Yesterday. Iran just happened to hack us yesterday. Looks like Cyber Reason was right, huh? Or supposedly Iran attacked us. Here's back October 4th. Microsoft, Election Guard, Microsoft Israel, Microsoft Pentagon Jedi cloud contract. Microsoft says Iranians tried to hack U.S. presidential campaign. That was back October 4th, 2019. CNN Business, this is yesterday. One way Iran could retaliate on the United States cyber attacks. Man, are they really trying to foreshadow a predictive program, something into our head? Iran strike puts U.S. cybersecurity experts on alert, January 4th. Iran is considered one of Washington's primary adversaries in cyberspace and has shown a willingness to go after government and civilian targets. Politico. Iran's retaliation could be hacking, not bombs. Tehran is widely considered to be one of the world's most malicious online actors. Cyber war with Iran. How vulnerable is America? All the media is covering it. Iranian cyber attacks on U.S. feared after Soleimani killing. Iran hackers among world's most aggressive. Well, we saw the report from 9/11 that Israel was the most aggressive spying. The Snowden leak said that they were the biggest threat as well. And then yesterday, U.S. government website hacked with pro-Iranian messages. Image of a bloodied Trump. I mean, I don't think you could script this much better than that. And interesting how USA Today frames this headline, that it's pro-Iranian messages, but it turns out that it's only a group claiming to be from Iran. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I think this hack came from the Middle East, but I don't think it came from Iran. Look at this photo. Trump getting punched by the Iran. Does this seem strategic to you? If you're going to hack somebody, you're going to hack important infrastructure. You're going to make an oil refinery blow up or something like that, and you're not going to say, "We did it. It was Iran. Come bomb us. Here's your excuse. Here's your pretext to come attack us." Right? And what do we have here? Global news. This is what the message said. "This is a message from Islamic Republic of Iran. U.S. agency site apparently hacked." And this is interesting. So this was back April 9th, 2018. A while ago. Hackers hit Iran with U.S. flag. Don't mess with our elections. Warning. So, America's getting hacked, and it looks like it's Iran taking credit, threatening our elections. Iran gets attacked, and they put up American flags, and it says, "Don't mess with our elections." Do you see the script being written here? Do you see the script being written? And remember what I said, or this Washington Times. Mossad, ruthless and cunning, has capability to target U.S. forces and make it look like Palestinian Arab act. I think that Israel is trying to instigate a clash with America in Iran. I know it's a stretch. I know you guys are probably think I'm wrong, that they're trying to instigate a war between us. A new Cold War possibly, with Russia and China getting involved, so to justify all the new military buildups and spending and fear and chaos. But I think Israel's hacking America and blaming it on Iran, and Israel is hacking Iran and blaming it on America with American flags. Whose motto is "By way of deception thou shalt make war"? The Making and Unmaking of a Mossad Officer by Viktor Ostrovsky. By way of deception. By way of deception. Anyway, it's like in school, like trying to get two people to fight. Like the instigator goes, Hey Billy, did you hear what Jenna said about you? And then he goes to the other person, "Hey Jenna, did you hear what Billy said about you?" I mean, it's a little obvious what we have going on here. A couple more things. Netanyahu recently, or I guess this was 2014, not too recently, but he says, turn all this hacking in the world and the cybersecurity threat, turn the curse into a blessing. Netanyahu wants a UN of the internet, and he says, the biggest challenge we face with the cyber world is protecting the privacy and security of the public. There could be a serious breach, he said. Quote, there should be a sort of UN for the internet, a coalition of the leading companies in the cyber world. And in my opinion, Israel is the most advanced, he added.
That tall tower there is the United States. The United States is bigger than Israel. But it ain't that much bigger than Israel. And Israel is number 2. Israel is 0.1% of the world's population. And we are receiving 20% of the global share in private cybersecurity investments. That's 200 times our weight in the world. What this revolution is doing, big data, AI, and connectivity, is allowing small countries to be big countries. It depends if you have the brains and the system. Any country can be attacked today with cyber attacks, and every country needs the combination of a national cyber defense effort and a robust cybersecurity industry. And I think Israel has that, and has that in ways that are, in many ways, unmatched.
Unmatched. Unmatched. This is like a gangster showing up at your little business saying, it'd be a shame if it burnt down. It'd be a shame if anything happened to your family. Let me protect you. It's a protection racket. It's extortion. To give up the keys to the city so they can have control over everything, so they will protect us. Have no fear, guys. Israel is going to protect us.
Israel had technology. It had technology because the military, especially military intelligence, produced a lot of capabilities. These incredibly gifted young men and women who come out of the army or the Mossad. They want to start their startups.
So we got Mossad, and these people are mostly from the Soviet Union and Russia too. There's other clips talking about Netanyahu saying, come here, come, we've got jobs for you. They say, oh, they were so smart, but in the Soviet Union, they couldn't make money. They come to Israel and they make so much money. I love this little...
The army or the Mossad. They want to start their startups.
By deception, they shall make war. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. This was maybe the most important video I've ever done. I don't know, I've said that before, but I mean, like I said, if you stuck through me hour and a half of ranting like a lunatic, I can't underestimate how important this is, or I can't overestimate how important this is. The magnitude of what's going on here to America. We're talking about the future of humanity. The future of civilization, the future, our lives. This is not a joke. This is not a game. Like, share, subscribe, talk to everybody you know. Who cares? Don't fear the anti-Semite name. They're going to do it. They're going to deny. They're going to call you crazy. It doesn't matter. It's an info war. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Share the video, bookmark the websites, links are in the description below, contact page, donate page, backups, BitChute, DLive, Patreon, subscribe star. If you guys want to see a little bit more on the Israel Tech Takeover with stuff that I didn't really cover in this video, I have the Israel Tech Takeover playlist, Who Runs the Internet, Benjamin Netanyahu's Plan to Rule the World, 20 minutes. Share this around with everybody you know. Psychopathic, Israel hacking the world, Israel's tech supremacy agenda, Israel hacking elections worldwide. That's all for now, guys. I will check out the chat, but I want to keep this as short as possible for the algorithm, for the watch time, and so people will click on it and watch. I love you all. See you guys in the next video. Take care.